I'm 21 years old now, but the story I'm about to tell you begins 4 years ago, on the morning my life split in two. I remember it like it happened yesterday, the clink of silverware on porcelain, the smell of fresh coffee filling our oversized kitchen, the way sunlight spilled through the tall windows and made everything look golden and perfect. To anyone walking in, it looked like a picture from a magazine. My father in his crisp shirt and tie, my mother in her designer dress, me sitting at the polished oak table with a plate of eggs in front of me. But beneath that staged perfection, something was off. Rel, my father said, without looking up from his tablet, sit properly, don't slouch. He always called me Rel, short for Michelle, but the way it rolled off his tongue sounded less like affection and more like an order. Yes, Dad, I mumbled, straightening my back. My mother gave me a tight smile, the kind of smile that looked good in photographs but never reached her eyes. We need to have a serious talk, she said, folding her manicured hands together on the table. I froze. I knew that tone. It was the same tone she used with her clients when she wanted to tell them their taste was tacky but couldn't say it outright. What is it? I asked. The silence stretched so long, I could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. Finally, my father set his tablet down and looked at me, his expression cool and businesslike. You're adopted. Just like that. 2 words thrown across the table as casually as if he were announcing the weather. I blinked at them, waiting for the punchline, waiting for my mother to laugh and say, "Oh, James, stop scaring her." But no one laughed. My mother just adjusted the diamond bracelet on her wrist and avoided my eyes. And my father continued, "We've decided it's time you moved out. You're old enough now. We've fulfilled our responsibilities." My fork slipped from my hand and clattered against the plate. What? You heard your father, my mother said smoothly, as if she were confirming a business transaction. We've given you everything: schools, clothes, vacations. It's time you find your own way. I just sat there, my mind racing, adopted, kicked out just like that. But here's the thing, while their words cut deep, I wasn't as blindsided as they probably expected me to be. Because tucked away in my backpack upstairs, I had something they didn't know about. Something I had found months earlier when I started snooping in places they told me never to go. Evidence. Evidence that the people sitting across from me, the ones who raised me in their perfect suburban home, weren't just cold and controlling parents. They had secrets. Dark ones. Secrets that could shatter their flawless reputation in an instant. So when I smiled, yes, smiled, before standing up from that breakfast table, I wasn't smiling because I was okay. I was smiling because they had no idea what I already knew. Growing up, my life looked like something people envied. We lived in a sprawling colonial-style house in Westport, Connecticut, where the lawns were manicured like golf courses and every driveway sparkled with luxury cars. My father, James Marshall, was a high-powered corporate lawyer in New York City. He wore Italian suits, carried a leather briefcase, and spoke in the kind of tone that made people obey without thinking. My mother, Diane, was an interior designer who catered to wealthy clients who wanted their homes featured in glossy magazines. On paper, we were the perfect American family. A lawyer father, a designer mother, an only child who earned straight A's. But behind the glossy surface, I always felt like an outsider in my own home. For starters, I didn't look like them. My skin was olive-toned, my hair curly and dark, my eyes deep brown. My parents were pale, blonde, and sharp-featured, like they had both stepped out of a Ralph Lauren ad. Strangers often assumed I was a foreign exchange student. I'd hear my mother laugh it off at dinner parties. "Oh, she takes after a distant relative." But her laugh always sounded tight, forced. And then there was the way they treated me. Love in my house was never unconditional. It was measured in achievements. Perfect grades, expected, awards, barely acknowledged. Anything less than flawless, met with disappointment and sharp words. "Why can't you be more organized?" My mother would sigh as she stood in the doorway of my messy room. "Discipline is everything, Rel," my father would say, scanning my report cards like a stock analyst reviewing quarterly numbers. The message was clear: I was only worth what I could produce. Still, I tried. I joined every academic club, stayed up until midnight studying, smiled through the family dinners that felt more like business meetings than moments of connection. I thought maybe if I worked hard enough, I could earn the love that always felt out of reach. But deep down, I knew something didn't add up. I remember being 12 at a Christmas gathering when my Aunt Margaret hugged me after giving me a leather journal. She whispered, "You may not be blood, but you're still family to me." I pulled back, confused. "What do you mean?" Her face turned red and she quickly changed the subject. Later, when I asked my mother, she brushed it off. "Too much eggnog, ignore her." But the seed of doubt had been planted. Over the years, little cracks appeared in the perfect facade. Questions about family medical history were dodged. Old photos went missing. The attic was declared off limits. And sometimes, late at night, I'd catch them watching me with an expression I couldn't read, like I was a stranger who had wandered into their house. By the time I was 16, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed answers. So when they went away for a charity gala one weekend, I did something I had never dared to do before. I broke into my father's office. His office smelled like leather and tobacco, though he never smoked around us. The heavy oak desk was stacked with neat piles of files, but it was the bottom drawer of the cabinet, the one he always kept locked, that drew me in. After a shaky attempt with a paperclip and screwdriver, thank you, YouTube tutorials, I heard the soft click of the lock giving way. My heart hammered as I pulled the drawer open. Inside were folders labeled with his precise handwriting. One said simply, "Our adoption." My breath caught. I slid it out, my hands trembling. The papers confirmed everything I had suspected. I was adopted as a newborn, just 3 days old. My birth mother was listed as Amanda Wilson, 17 years old, from Albany. No father was named. Tears blurred my vision as I photographed the documents with my phone, but then my eyes caught on another folder. This one was labeled Cayman Holdings. Curiosity burned in me, stronger than fear. I opened it. Inside were records of bank transfers, hundreds of thousands of dollars wired to accounts in the Cayman Islands, letters with phrases like clean transfers and untraceable donations, names I didn't recognize. Money laundering, that's what it looked like. I didn't understand all of it, but I knew it wasn't legal. The sound of the garage door opening made me jump. They were home early. My hands shook as I shoved everything back, locked the drawer, and slipped out of the office. That night, lying in bed with the glow of my phone lighting up the adoption papers, I felt two emotions battling inside me. Pain, because the truth was right there in black and white. And power, because I suddenly held something that could destroy their perfect world. 4 months later, on my 17th birthday, they decided to reveal the truth on their own terms. Only they didn't expect me to already know. They didn't expect me to already have evidence. And when they told me to leave, sliding a check across the table like they were paying off a contractor, I realized something. They thought they were discarding me. But what they were really doing was setting me free, with all of their darkest secrets sitting safely inside my backpack. And that was the moment I knew this wasn't the end of my story. It was only the beginning. When I finally shut the door to my room after that breakfast, my chest felt tight, like the walls were closing in on me. I leaned against the dresser, listening to the faint murmur of my parents' voices downstairs. They were probably already moving on to their next social event, as if discarding me was just another item on their agenda. But here's the truth. What they didn't know was that their betrayal didn't start that morning. It had been unfolding for years, in small cracks I had tried to plaster over with straight A's and fake smiles. Looking back, the signs had been there all along. Growing up, my childhood was painted in glossy finishes. Designer clothes laid out on my bed before school, carefully curated vacations to Europe, summers in Martha's Vineyard. On the outside, it looked perfect. My classmates envied me. Teachers said I was so lucky. But inside those walls, I was always aware of how fragile it all was. I remember one evening when I was about 10. We were at a dinner party my parents hosted, the kind where adults sipped wine while a string quartet played softly in the corner. My mother pulled me close in front of her guests, smiling like I was a prized possession on display. "Rel plays piano beautifully," she bragged. I blinked. I'd only had 3 lessons. But before I could protest, she was already pushing me toward the glossy grand piano in the living room. Go ahead, darling, show them. I sat down, my small hands trembling over the keys, and stumbled through a piece I barely knew. The notes clashed, my rhythm faltered. Laughter rippled through the crowd, not mean but dismissive. After the guests left, I expected comfort. Instead, my father's voice cut like glass. You embarrassed us tonight, practice harder. Next time, don't make us look like fools. That was how it always was. I wasn't a daughter. I was a performance, a reflection of them. As I grew older, the differences between us became harder to ignore. At 12, I loved filling journals with stories, sketching characters, imagining worlds. My room was a mess of paper scraps, ink stains, and doodles taped to the walls. My mother would stand in the doorway, her face tightening with disapproval. Rel, this artistic temperament won't get you far in life. Clean this up. No one respects chaos. My father, on the other hand, believed the only respectable career paths were law or finance. Journalism, creative writing. He scoffed once when I mentioned my dream. That's not a real profession. That's a hobby for people who can't handle reality. It didn't matter what I wanted. My future had already been mapped out by them. Yale, law school, corporate success. My life was an investment, and they expected returns. Then there were the slip-ups, moments when the truth of my adoption nearly surfaced long before they chose to weaponize it. At a family Christmas when I was 12, Aunt Margaret gave me that leather journal. Her whispered words still echoed in my mind. You may not be blood, but you're still family. The confusion must have been written all over my face because she backtracked immediately. Oh, ignore me, sweetie. I've had too much eggnog. Later, I tried asking my mother. She brushed it off so quickly it left me dizzy. Margaret doesn't know what she's talking about. But the seed had been planted, and from that day, I noticed things I hadn't before. Like the photo albums, how the first few pages were baby pictures of me that looked nothing like the carefully staged family portraits that followed. Those hospital shots, the strangers holding me in their arms. When I asked about them, my mother snapped, "You shouldn't snoop through private things." The album vanished the next day. Or the time in 7th grade when we had a project about family medical history. I asked if heart disease or diabetes ran in our family. My father's newspaper lowered just enough for me to see the flicker in his eyes. Nothing worth mentioning, just write that we're healthy. But what about Grandpa's heart condition? I pressed. His voice sharpened. Enough with the questions, just write what I said. By the time I was 15, I had started piecing it together. My best friend, Jennifer, was the only person I trusted enough to confide in. We'd sit in her treehouse, our sanctuary, sharing chips and soda while I poured out my suspicions. They look at me like I don't belong, I whispered once, my throat tight. Like I'm intruding in their perfect life. Maybe they're just private, Jennifer suggested, trying to soften it. Some families don't like talking about personal stuff. It's more than that, I insisted. It's like there's a wall between us. She squeezed my hand. Even if it's true you're still you, that doesn't change. At the time, I clung to her words like a lifeline. But things escalated the summer I turned 16. My parents left for a weekend charity gala in Manhattan. For once, the house was mine. I should have enjoyed the rare freedom, blasting music or watching movies past midnight. Instead, I found myself standing in front of my father's locked cabinet, my pulse hammering. I knew I wasn't supposed to be there. But something in me, the part that had been collecting doubts for years, needed answers. It took me 3 tries, but the lock finally gave way. Inside, the truth waited. The adoption papers, my birth mother's name, Amanda Wilson, 17 years old, no father listed. But it was the other folder that chilled me. Cayman Holdings, bank transfers, offshore accounts, letters from someone named Victor Bardell, full of terms like clean transfers and minimal oversight. I remember the sound of the garage door opening, the panic flooding my chest. I shoved the documents back, slammed the drawer shut, and bolted upstairs just as the front door opened. That night, lying in bed with my phone glowing in the dark, I stared at the photographs I had taken. I was adopted. My parents were hiding shady financial dealings, and I had proof. So when they finally dropped the bomb on me at breakfast, 4 months later, it almost felt rehearsed. You're adopted. We've done our job, now pack your things. The cruel part wasn't the words, it was the coldness. The way they said it like they were firing an employee who didn't meet expectations. But what they didn't realize was this: I had stopped being afraid of the truth a long time ago. I remember Jennifer's face when I told her later that day. They really kicked you out, she gasped. They told me straight up, we fulfilled our obligations. Her eyes filled with tears. That's insane, Rel. Who does that to their kid? I shrugged, but inside I was shaking. The kind of people who think family is an investment. She hugged me so tightly it hurt. You're staying with us, my parents won't say no. And she was right. Jennifer's mom cried when she heard what happened. Her dad muttered curses under his breath, shaking his head in disbelief. Their house wasn't big, their furniture wasn't fancy, but the warmth in their eyes was something my mansion had never once given me. Still, as I unpacked my things in Jennifer's guest room that night, I felt the weight of the external hard drive hidden in my backpack. The one that contained every photo, every note, every snippet of evidence I had been collecting for months. Because the question burning inside me wasn't just about being adopted anymore. It was this: what else were they hiding? Living at Jennifer's house was like stepping into another world. Her family didn't have the money mine did, but they had something I'd never known: warmth. Her mom made spaghetti and garlic bread the first night I stayed there. The sauce bubbled on the stove, filling the kitchen with a smell that reminded me of comfort I didn't know I needed. Her dad cracked jokes while setting the table, laughing so hard at his own punchlines that tears filled his eyes. Jennifer rolled hers, embarrassed, but I sat there smiling, soaking it all in. For once, no one cared if I put my elbows on the table. No one gave me a side-eye for speaking with too much emotion. I wasn't a performance here, I was just me. But even in that safety, the secrets I carried felt heavy. The external hard drive never left my backpack. At night, I'd unzip it, plug it into my laptop, and scroll through the photos of adoption papers and offshore bank transfers. My parents thought they had kicked me out, cut me off. What they didn't realize was that I was already sitting on the kind of evidence that could ruin them. The weeks that followed were surreal. At school, I went through the motions, class, homework, pretending nothing was wrong, but inside I was unraveling. One afternoon, my calculus teacher pulled me aside. "Michelle, is everything okay? You're distracted, this isn't like you." I opened my mouth to say something, but nothing came out. What was I supposed to tell her? That my parents had discarded me like expired groceries. That I was living in my best friend's guest room with evidence of money laundering zipped into my backpack. Instead, I muttered, "Just dealing with personal stuff." She nodded, sympathetic, but I saw the worry in her eyes. At home, Jennifer noticed too. She found me late one night sitting cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by printouts of the documents. "You're scaring me," she said softly. "I can't stop thinking about it," I whispered. "They kicked me out like I was nothing, but look at this." I shoved one of the bank statements at her. "These are transfers to offshore accounts. That's not normal." She studied the papers, her brow furrowing. "This looks serious, like criminal serious." Her words made my stomach twist. Criminal? My parents weren't just cold and unloving, they might actually be criminals. And then came the phone call. It was late on a Thursday. Jennifer and I were sprawled across her bed, half watching a movie when my phone buzzed. The caller ID made my blood run cold: Dad. For a moment, I just stared at the screen. "You're not answering," Jennifer asked. My thumb hovered over the decline button. But then, curiosity got the better of me. I slid to accept and pressed the phone to my ear. "Rel," his voice was sharp, clipped, the same tone he used when scolding junior associates at his firm. "We need to talk." "There's nothing to talk about," I shot back. My heart pounded, but I forced my voice steady. "You're being ungrateful. We've given you everything and this is how you repay us. Sneaking around, snooping where you don't belong." My stomach dropped, he knows. What are you talking about? I tried to sound innocent, but my throat tightened. Don't play dumb, he snapped. You've been in my office, you've seen things you shouldn't have, that ends now. I froze. My gaze darted to my backpack across the room, where the hard drive sat zipped inside. How do you know that? I whispered. I always know, he said. You think you're clever, but you're still just a child. Stay out of matters you don't understand, Rel, or you'll regret it. The line went dead. I sat there, the phone trembling in my hand, the echo of his voice replaying in my head. Jennifer sat up, eyes wide. What did he say? He knows, I whispered. He knows I went through his office. Her face drained of color. Rel, what if he comes after you? The thought lodged itself in my mind like a thorn. My parents weren't the type to scream or throw things. They were the type to destroy people quietly, with lawyers, with money, with influence. And if they knew I had evidence, what would they do to protect themselves? The next few days, paranoia wrapped around me like a vice. I noticed black cars idling near the school parking lot. Strange numbers started calling my phone. Once, I could have sworn I saw one of my father's colleagues across the street when I left Jennifer's house. I told myself I was imagining it, but deep down I wasn't so sure. Meanwhile, the evidence in my possession gnawed at me. Adoption papers, bank transfers, letters about untraceable donations. It was more than enough to suggest my parents weren't just liars, they were laundering money. But here's the question that haunted me. What was I supposed to do with it? Jennifer's uncle, Mike, was a financial investigator. She suggested we show him. Absolutely not, I said at first. If he finds out I've been snooping in their office, I could get in trouble too. Rel, you were a kid living in their house, she argued. You didn't break the law, they did. And if this is what it looks like, you need someone who actually understands what we're looking at. She was right. The weight of it was too heavy for me to carry alone. That weekend, Mike came over for dinner. He was in his 40s with kind eyes but a no-nonsense air. After dessert, Jennifer nudged me. Show him. I hesitated, then pulled the hard drive from my backpack. My hands shook as I plugged it into his laptop. He scrolled through the documents, his expression growing more serious by the second. Where did you get these? He asked finally. I swallowed, from my dad's office. He leaned back, rubbing his chin. These aren't just suspicious. This is textbook money laundering. Layered transactions, offshore accounts, shell companies, it's all here. My chest tightened. So it's real. It's real, he said gravely. And if your father's name is tied to these, he's in deep. The room spun. I gripped the edge of the table. Jennifer reached for my hand. Rel, what are you going to do? That was the question, wasn't it? What was I supposed to do? Turn my parents in. They had raised me, provided for me, even if it was conditional love. Could I really be the one to bring them down? Or stay silent? Pretend I hadn't seen anything, let them keep their empire intact, even if it meant living with the knowledge that they had discarded me like trash. The moral dilemma pressed on my chest until I could hardly breathe. But things didn't stay theoretical for long. Because 2 nights later, something happened that forced the decision right out of my hands. I was walking home from school. Jennifer had stayed late for cheer practice, when I heard footsteps behind me. Heavy, purposeful. I turned, but the street was empty. The hairs on the back of my neck prickled. I walked faster, so did the footsteps. I broke into a run, my backpack thumping against my shoulders. My lungs burned, my heart slammed against my ribs. And then, out of nowhere, a car screeched around the corner, headlights blinding me. The last thing I remember was the squeal of brakes and the sickening thud as the world went black. The first thing I felt was cold. Not the gentle chill of air conditioning, but the sharp, sterile cold that clung to my skin like ice. When I tried to move, pain shot through my body. My eyelids fluttered open to a blur of white light, ceiling tiles, and the faint beep-beep-beep of a monitor. I was in a hospital. My throat was raw, and my voice cracked as I croaked, "Hello." A nurse appeared almost instantly, her sneakers squeaking against the linoleum floor. You're awake, she said gently. Don't try to move too fast. You've been through a lot. What happened? I whispered. She hesitated, glancing at the chart in her hands. You were hit by a car. It looks like the driver didn't stick around. Do you remember anything? Images flickered in my mind, the footsteps, the blinding headlights, the screech of tires. My chest tightened. It wasn't an accident, I murmured. The nurse gave me a look that was equal parts sympathetic and cautious. Right now, the important thing is that you're alive. The doctors will explain the rest. Alive, the word felt heavy. When Jennifer and her parents rushed in later, Jennifer burst into tears at the sight of me, hooked up to wires and IV tubes. Oh my God, Rel, she sobbed, clutching my hand. You scared me to death. Her mom kissed my forehead, murmuring, Thank heaven you're okay. Her dad stood at the foot of the bed, his jaw tight, eyes burning with something I couldn't quite name, anger maybe. Hit and run, my ass, he muttered. That was no accident. Jennifer's uncle, Mike, showed up not long after. He leaned over me, lowering his voice. Rel, do you think this has anything to do with the files? I swallowed hard, my ribs ached with the effort. They knew I saw them. My dad called me. He said I'd regret it. Silence filled the room. Jennifer squeezed my hand tighter. This is insane. They can't just, her voice cracked, anger colliding with fear. Mike's expression hardened. I'll pull the police report, but if what you're saying is true, then you're not just in danger, you're a target. That night, lying in the hospital bed, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard the squeal of brakes, felt the impact again. The thought circled endlessly in my head, what if I hadn't woken up? I stared at the ceiling, clutching the thin hospital blanket, and whispered to myself, they tried to silence me. The next morning, the doctor came in. He was kind-faced, with gray streaks in his hair. He held up an X-ray against the lightbox. You're lucky, he said. A fractured rib, some bruising, and a mild concussion. It could have been much worse. Lucky. He pointed to the X-ray, tracing the faint line on one rib. We'll keep you a few more days to monitor you, but you'll recover. Do you have somewhere safe to go after discharge? My eyes flicked to Jennifer's mom, who nodded immediately. She's staying with us. Good, the doctor said, scribbling notes on the chart. Rest and let your body heal. But my mind couldn't rest. Because alongside the X-ray of my ribs, I carried an invisible fracture, the knowledge that my own parents might have tried to kill me. Later that afternoon, a detective showed up. His badge caught the light as he pulled up a chair. Miss Marshall, he began, we're investigating your accident. Witnesses say the car swerved onto the sidewalk. Do you remember anything about the vehicle? I licked my lips, my mouth felt dry. Dark sedan, headlights too bright, I didn't see the plate. The detective nodded, jotting notes. We'll check traffic cameras. In the meantime, do you have any reason to believe someone would want to hurt you? Jennifer and her parents exchanged uneasy glances. I hesitated. Every instinct told me to stay quiet. That's what my parents had drilled into me. Don't air family business. Don't reveal cracks in the facade. But lying there, bruised and broken, I realized silence could kill me. Yes, I said finally, my voice trembling. My parents. The detective's pen froze mid-scratch. Your parents. They're hiding things, illegal things. I found evidence in my dad's office. He called me before the accident. He said I'd regret snooping. The words tumbled out faster than I intended, but once they were spoken, I couldn't take them back. The detective leaned back slowly. That's a serious accusation. I know, I whispered, but it's the truth. After he left, Jennifer looked at me, her eyes shining with both pride and fear. You did the right thing, she said. Her dad nodded. Now the authorities are involved. They can't just sweep this under the rug. But her uncle Mike was more cautious. The system can be slow, and if your parents are as powerful as you say, they might try to spin this their way. What am I supposed to do? I asked, my voice cracking. They've already taken everything from me. They kicked me out and now, I couldn't finish. Jennifer climbed onto the edge of the bed and hugged me carefully, mindful of the wires and bruises. You have us. You're not alone. That night I dreamt of headlights, of my father's voice on the phone, "Stay out of matters you don't understand, or you'll regret it." I woke up drenched in sweat, my heart pounding, the monitor beeping frantically as the nurse rushed in. "It's okay," she soothed, adjusting the wires. "Just a nightmare." But it wasn't just a nightmare, it was my reality. On the third day, I was discharged. Jennifer's parents helped me pack the small duffel bag I'd brought to the hospital. My ribs still ached with every movement, but I felt stronger than I had when I first woke up. Before we left, the nurse handed me an envelope. "This came for you." Confused, I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, typed, "Anonymous." "Stay quiet, stop digging, or next time you won't be so lucky." The blood drained from my face. Jennifer's mom gasped when she read over my shoulder. "Oh my God." Her dad's jaw clenched. "They're trying to scare you, don't let them." But it was working. My hands shook as I stuffed the letter back into the envelope. Because now I knew for certain, it hadn't been an accident. Back at Jennifer's house, her uncle Mike sat us down. He spread my father's documents across the dining table, the adoption papers, the offshore transfers, the letters. "This isn't just about money," he said grimly. "Look at the dates. These transfers line up with the timeline of your adoption. That payment, $300,000, went through just days after you were born." I stared at the numbers, my stomach twisting. "Are you saying they bought me?" Mike exhaled slowly. "It's possible. Golden Futures, the agency listed here, was notorious for shady deals. Some of their adoptions weren't legal. Some were outright trafficking." The room spun. Jennifer touched my arm gently. "Rel, that means your birth mom might not have given you up willingly." Her words hit harder than the car ever could. All these years, I'd wondered if she thought of me, if she had ever wanted me. Now the possibility loomed. Maybe she hadn't even had a choice. That night, I lay awake in Jennifer's guest room, staring at the ceiling. My ribs throbbed, my body ached, but the real pain was deeper. My parents had lied to me. They had discarded me. And now, evidence suggested they might have bought me through a corrupt agency. Everything I thought I knew about my life, my family, my very identity, it was all unraveling. And somewhere out there, there was a woman named Amanda Wilson who might hold the missing pieces. The days after I got out of the hospital blurred together like a fever dream. I spent most of my time on Jennifer's couch, wrapped in a blanket, a heating pad pressed against my ribs. Every breath hurt, but what hurt more was the gnawing question twisting inside me. Who am I really? The letter I'd received at the hospital, "Stop digging or next time you won't be so lucky," sat folded inside my journal. Sometimes I'd take it out, run my fingers over the words, and wonder whose hands had typed it. My father's, one of his colleagues, a stranger hired to scare me into silence. But instead of scaring me into stopping, it made me more determined. One evening, Jennifer sat cross-legged on the floor, helping me organize the printouts Mike had made from the files. Her highlighter squeaked across the page as she circled another suspicious transfer. "Look at this one," she said. $500,000, wired 3 days before your adoption papers were finalized. And it's labeled as a donation. Who donates $500,000 to an adoption agency? I shook my head, pressing my hand to my aching side. "It's not a donation, it's a price tag." Her eyes softened. "Rel, you think they bought you?" The word stung, bought, like I was an object, not a baby. "I don't know," I admitted. "But if they did, that means my birth mom didn't give me up the way they said. Which means," my throat tightened, "which means she might have been lied to, she might have thought I was dead, or stolen." The room went quiet. The only sound was the ticking of the old clock in the hallway. Finally, Jennifer whispered, "Then we have to find her." The next day, Mike came over again with his laptop. He was cautious, but his eyes were sharp, like a detective piecing together a puzzle. "Golden Futures," he said, scrolling through an old article. "Shut down in 2010, accused of unethical practices, no convictions but plenty of smoke." He tapped the screen. "There's a name here, Patricia Goldstein, director, disappeared overseas after the shutdown." But he clicked again, pulling up a forum thread. Other adoptees are talking. There's a network of people who were adopted through golden futures trying to trace their origins. My heart leapt. Can you connect me? He nodded. I'll reach out through one of my contacts. But Rel, if you go down this road, you might uncover things you're not ready for. This isn't just about money anymore. It's about identity. I swallowed hard. I'd rather know the truth than live with lies. That night, while Jennifer snored softly beside me, I lay awake scrolling through an adoptee forum Mike had shown me. Post after post jumped out at me. Golden Futures told my mom I was stillborn. I found out last year she's been searching for me for 20 years. My adoption fee was $250,000. Does anyone know why so much money changed hands? I just found my birth mom. She said she never signed papers. They forged her signature. Each story felt like a shard of glass. What if mine was the same? I typed my own post before I could second guess it. Name at birth, Rel Wilson. Born 2004. Mother listed as Amanda Wilson, 17, Albany, NY. Adopted through Golden Futures, looking for any connections. My finger hovered over the enter key, then pressed. It was out there now. My truth, or at least the scraps of it I had. The following week, Mike called with an update. There's someone you should talk to, he said. A woman named Marcus. Well, that's her screen name. She's been helping other Golden Futures adoptees track their families. She might be able to point you toward your birth mother. I clutched the phone, my palms sweaty. Set it up. When I logged onto the video call that Saturday, my heart pounded so loud I could hear it in my ears. The woman who appeared on screen was older, maybe late 30s, with tired eyes but a warm smile. You must be Rel, she said. I've read your post. I'm so sorry for what you're going through. Thank you, I whispered. She adjusted her glasses. Golden Futures was a mess. I've spoken to dozens of adoptees. A lot of birth mothers were told their bobbies had died. Others were pressured to sign paperwork they didn't understand. If your mother was 17, chances are she was vulnerable. Do you have her full name? I nodded. Amanda Wilson, Albany, New York. Marcus typed quickly, scanning through something off screen. Wilson is common, but wait, I've seen that name before. Amanda Wilson filed a missing child inquiry in 2005. She claimed her baby girl was taken without her consent. My breath caught. That's me. It might be, Marcus said gently. I'll keep digging. But Rel, prepare yourself. If it's true, your mother has been searching for you for years, and she's probably been told lies to keep her from finding you. Tears blurred my vision. She wanted me. Marcus's voice softened. Most of them did. You weren't abandoned, Rel, you were stolen. After the call, Jennifer found me crying quietly on her bed. She wanted me, I choked out. All these years, she wanted me. Jennifer hugged me tight. Then we'll find her. But the closer I got to the truth, the more dangerous things became. One evening, while Jennifer and I were working on homework, her dad came into the room with a grim look on his face. He held up an envelope that had been shoved under their front door. Inside was a single Polaroid photo of me, walking out of the hospital with Jennifer's mom. On the back in block letters, stop. Jennifer's dad's hands shook as he held it. This isn't a threat anymore, this is surveillance. My stomach dropped. Whoever wanted me silent wasn't just watching, they were close. That night, Jennifer's parents insisted on calling the police again. The detective came, collected the photo, and promised to increase patrols in the neighborhood. But I saw the doubt in his eyes, the hesitation. My parents had influence, money, power. They weren't going down without a fight. Still, the detective's words echoed in my head. The best thing you can do is keep gathering evidence. The more you have, the harder it is for anyone to bury this. So that's what I did. Mike helped me piece together a timeline. Day 3 of my life, Amanda Wilson gave birth in Albany. Day 4, Golden Futures processed adoption paperwork. Day 5, $300,000 wired from Cayman Holdings to Golden Futures. Day 6, I was in the marshal's home. The speed was suspicious, almost impossible under normal adoption law. See this? Mike pointed to the transfer date. That money didn't come from your parents' account. It came from a shell company, which means they weren't just clients, they were part of the system. My blood ran cold. You're saying they weren't just complicit, they were involved. He nodded grimly. Exactly. That night, I lay in bed at Jennifer's house, staring at the ceiling. My ribs ached, but it wasn't the pain that kept me awake. It was the realization that my life wasn't just a lie. It was a crime scene. And the people who raised me weren't just liars, they were criminals. The message sat on my screen, glowing like a live wire. Rel, this is Amanda Wilson. I think I'm your mother. For a long time, I just stared at it, my heart thudding so hard I thought the neighbors could hear it. My hands shook as I hovered over the keyboard. What do you even say to someone who might be the woman who gave you life? Jennifer leaned over my shoulder. Rel, are you going to reply? I swallowed, my throat dry. What if it's not real? What if it's someone messing with me? Jennifer squeezed my arm. And what if it is real? That night, I typed a trembling reply. Amanda, my adoption papers list you as my mother. Born Albany, 2004. Please tell me what you know. I hit send and sat there, staring at the screen, my stomach in knots. The reply came the next morning. I was 17 when I had you. They told me you died at birth. I never believed it. I searched for years. When Golden Futures shut down, I thought I'd lost my only chance. But if you're here, if you're alive, I need to see you. Tears spilled down my cheeks. She had searched. She had never stopped. For the first time in my life, I felt wanted. Mike helped arrange a call a few days later. I was shaking so badly I almost canceled. But when her face appeared on the screen, older now, lines around her eyes, but with the same curly hair and expressive hands I saw in my own reflection, it was like staring at a piece of myself I never knew was missing. Rel, she whispered, her voice trembling. Is it really you? Yes, I choked out. It's me. We both broke down, crying so hard we could barely speak. She told me everything. How she had been sent to a maternity home by her strict parents. How Golden Futures approached her, promising a better life for her baby. How, after the birth, they showed her a forged death certificate and told her I hadn't survived. I knew it wasn't true, she said, wiping her eyes. I felt it, but they wouldn't let me see you. They threatened me if I asked too many questions. I've been searching for 17 years. My chest ached with both grief and relief. I thought you gave me up. I thought you didn't want me. Oh, sweetheart, she whispered. I never stopped wanting you. For days after that call, I floated between joy and rage. Joy that I wasn't unwanted. Rage that my adoptive parents had taken part in something so monstrous. Because if Amanda was telling the truth, and I believed she was, then my adoption wasn't just shady. It was theft. And my parents had been complicit. The pressure built until I couldn't hold it in anymore. One evening, sitting on Jennifer's back porch, I said the words out loud for the first time. I think they tried to kill me. Jennifer froze mid-sip of her soda. Your parents. I nodded. The car, the letter, the photo. They know I have the evidence, and if I go public, my voice cracked. They'll lose everything. Jennifer set her drink down, her expression fierce. Then let them lose everything. They don't deserve to keep it after what they did. I shook my head. But they raised me. For 17 years they were my family. Cold, strict, conditional, but still my family. How do I turn them in? How do I destroy them completely? Her eyes softened. Rel, they already destroyed themselves. You're just deciding whether to let the truth see the light. A week later, my adoptive mother called me. Her voice was brittle, cracking in ways I had never heard before. Rel, please, we need to talk. I almost hung up, but something in me wanted to hear her out. We met in a crowded cafe downtown. She showed up alone, without my father. Her makeup was perfect, but her hands shook as she stirred her coffee. You look well, she said stiffly. College seems to agree with you. I stared at her, silent. Finally, she sighed. Your father and we were wrong, about many things, but you have to understand, we only wanted what was best. What was best for who? I snapped. For me or for you? She flinched. We couldn't have children. Golden Futures promised us a baby. We didn't ask questions we didn't want answers to, we just wanted you. You wanted a product, I spat. You paid for me, like I was a handbag or a house, and when I didn't fit your plan, you threw me out. Her eyes filled with tears. We loved you, Rel, we did, in our way. I shook my head. Your way wasn't love, it was control, it was investment. And now I know the truth. Amanda is my mother, she wanted me, she searched for me, you stole me from her. Her hand trembled as she reached across the table. Please, don't do this, don't destroy us. Your father's already under investigation. If you testify, if you hand over those documents, we'll lose everything. I stared at her hand, then back at her face. This was the moment, the choice. Loyalty to the people who raised me, or truth for the woman who had been searching for me my entire life. I pulled my hand back. You already lost me, now you'll lose the rest. When I told Amanda about the cafe meeting later, she squeezed my hand through the screen. You're brave, she said softly. Braver than I ever was. I shook my head. I'm just tired of living in their lies. Mike helped me draft a statement for the authorities. We organized the documents, the bank transfers, the timeline, Amanda's testimony. It was enough to trigger a deeper investigation, not just into my adoptive father's finances, but into the entire Golden Futures network. For the first time, I felt like I wasn't powerless anymore. But that night, lying in bed, I cried harder than I had in years. Because exposing the truth didn't just mean bringing justice. It meant finally letting go of the fantasy that my adoptive parents had ever really loved me. When the detective said the words, "Your father's been arrested," I felt my whole body go weightless, like gravity had let me go. For 17 years, my father had seemed untouchable. He was the man in the tailored suit, the booming voice in the courtroom, the figure whose shadow I could never escape. To hear that he was sitting in a holding cell, that the mask of perfection had finally cracked. It was surreal. The days that followed were a blur of hearings, paperwork, and interviews. I sat across from investigators in stark offices, the hum of fluorescent lights above me as I explained everything. The offshore accounts, the coded letters, the threats, the donations that were really payments. Each time I handed over a file or repeated my story, I felt a little piece of the weight lift. But it also hurt, because every document, every word was proof that my parents weren't just flawed people. They were criminals. My mother wasn't arrested at first, but she was questioned. Hard. Evidence tied her interior design firm to money transfers disguised as client invoices. When she realized the walls were closing in, she tried calling me again. Voicemails, letters, pleas for understanding. But I didn't respond, I couldn't. Meanwhile, Amanda and I were slowly building a relationship. Our first in-person meeting was at a quiet park in Portland, Oregon. When I stepped off the plane and saw her waiting by the arrival's gate, holding a small bouquet of daisies, I froze. She had my eyes, my hands, my curls. Rel, she whispered, her voice breaking. I dropped my bag and threw my arms around her. For a moment, time stopped. I thought I lost you forever, she sobbed into my shoulder. I thought you didn't want me, I whispered back. We cried together in the middle of the airport, strangers passing by, some stopping to watch, others smiling softly before moving on. To them, it was just a touching reunion. To me, it was the moment my life truly began. Over the next months, I learned more about her life, how she had become a nurse, how she had built a family with a husband who adored her, how she had lit a candle every year on the anniversary of the day she was told I had died. She introduced me to my half-siblings, Zach and Lily. The first time Zach cracked a sarcastic joke that sounded exactly like something I'd say, I laughed so hard tears rolled down my face. Lily hugged me like she'd known me forever. It wasn't perfect, nothing could undo the 17 stolen years, but it was real. And real was all I had ever wanted. The investigation into Golden Futures grew bigger than I could have imagined. My father's arrest wasn't the end, it was the spark. Journalists dug up old cases, birth mothers came forward, adoptees like me shared stories of lies and forged paperwork. Some days I felt overwhelmed, My name was in headlines, reporters emailed me nonstop, strangers online argued about my story. But in the quieter moments, in therapy, in late-night calls with Amanda, in conversations with Jennifer on her back porch, I realized something important. My life wasn't defined by their crimes. It was defined by what I chose to do with the truth. The trial was brutal. I sat in the gallery, my ribs still aching faintly from the accident months before as prosecutors laid out the evidence. Bank statements, witnesses, even recordings. When my father was led in wearing an orange jumpsuit instead of a tailored suit, his eyes flicked to me. For the first time, he looked small. I didn't look away. My testimony was the hardest part. My voice shook as I described the adoption papers, the offshore accounts, the threats. My lawyer reminded me to breathe, but I kept going until the judge told me I could step down. When I walked past my mother on the way out, she mouthed, "Please." But I kept walking. The verdict came weeks later, guilty. My father was sentenced to prison. My mother avoided jail time but received probation, community service, and the loss of everything she'd built. Their mansion was seized. Their friends vanished. Their empire crumbled. And me. I walked away. Healing wasn't instant. Therapy became a lifeline. For months, I untangled the knot of anger, grief, and guilt inside me. My therapist helped me see something I couldn't admit to myself. It wasn't my fault. Not the lies, not the adoption, not the hit and run, not their choices. I was a victim of their corruption, yes, but I was also a survivor. At 21, I look back and see scars, literal and invisible. I still flinch when I hear brakes squeal. I still wake up sometimes, heart pounding, dreaming of headlights. But I also see strength. I see the girl who walked out of a mansion with only a backpack and the courage to smile. I see the young woman who found her real mother, her siblings, her voice. And I see the truth. Family isn't blood or money or reputation. Family is love, unconditional, messy, imperfect love. Now, Amanda and I are rebuilding what we lost. Jennifer is still my best friend, my chosen sister. I started college with a scholarship for journalism, and my investigation into adoption fraud turned into a published exposé. The girl who was told she wasn't enough, who was kicked out at 17, is now telling her own story. And people are listening. So here I am, sitting in front of this camera, telling you everything. They kicked me out at 17. They thought they were discarding a liability, but I walked away with their darkest secrets, and those secrets set me free. Because sometimes, the family that betrays you shows you the meaning of love by its absence. And sometimes, the family you find shows you the meaning of healing by its presence. Speech balloon. Now I want to ask you. What does family mean to you? Is it blood, obligation, or is it the people who show up for you even when they don't have to? If my story resonated with you, leave a comment below. Share it with someone who needs to hear that love isn't about conditions, it's about choice. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe, because sometimes the most painful endings lead to the most beautiful beginnings.